Russian Empire was a supernation covering over half of Asia and half of Europe from 1721 to 1917. They were a mostly isolated nation with unique culture that stood out among its European and Asian neighbors. However, on June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist, as they believed the Austro-Hungarians were becoming too strong. Austria-Hungary declared war on the comparably small nation of Serbia. Russia, being Serbia's ally, was inclined to join the war as well. Both Russia and the Western world had no idea what was ahead of them. The Russian Empire spanned over 14 million square miles during its peak point of rule. It covered what is now Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and several more countries. It was the largest country ever to exist and remains that way to this day. The Russian-Serbian alliance went back hundreds of years, even before the First World War. In the Middle Ages, Serbians took refuge in Russia when the Ottomans infiltrated their lands. In the 19th century, the Ottomans declared war on the Serbians, and Russia's promised to protect the latter, forming a long-lasting alliance between the two. Of course, this would put Russia in a particular position at the beginning of the First World War. When Austria-Hungary declared war, the Russians were forced to side with the Serbians. The idea of Marxism, the base form of capitalism, took form in 1847 within the book Communist Manifesto, written by Karl Marx. It was this philosophy that would force Russia to draw out of World War I and start a revolution that would change the world forever. Russia's impact on World War I started from the very beginning. Their joining of Serbia was very intimidating to both Austria-Hungary and German forces alike. With a staggering 1.4 million soldiers at their fingertips, everyone expected that the Allies, of course consisting of Russia, England, and France, or the Triple Entente, would come out on top. However, the Battle of Tannenberg would put down that confidence. The Russians lost 170,000 men, as well as a cause for General Alexander Samasov's suicide. The entire Russian Second Army was lost, and Russian morale was down significantly. However, this was soon to change. On the 4th of June, 1916, Russia began its biggest and most successful military operation yet, the Brusilov Offensive. It lasted up until September 20th of the same year and severely damaged the structure of the Central Forces. This triumph gave the Allies a whole new advantage on the war, and the tide began to turn for the good. However, at the beginning of 1917, the Russian people were becoming concerned about the economic effect that the war was having on their empire. A new group of people arose to start a revolution, the Socialist Party. They were led by Vladimir Lenin. Socialism is an economic system in which all property is co-owned and is essentially so everyone gets equal. It also gives a great deal of power to the government instead of the people. The socialists started to get more and more aggressive, and this forced the Russian Empire to withdraw from the war, and a civil war began. The Russian Civil War lasted from 1917 to 1919 and was one of the largest tragedies the country had ever seen. Over 12 million people died, and the socialists managed to come out on top.
Самым главным вопросом, который стоит перед партией коммунистов, который больше всего привлек к себе внимание на последнем партийном съезде, является вопрос о крестьянах-середняках. Естественно, что первым вопросом задается обыкновенно, что такое крестьянин-середняк. Естественно, что партийные товарищи рассказывали не раз, как в деревне, и спрашивали, кто такой середняк. И на это мы отвечаем: середняк – это такой крестьянин, который не эксплуатирует чужого труда, не живет чужим трудом, не пользуется ни в какой мере, никоим образом плодами чужого труда, а работает сам, живет собственным трудом. Таких крестьян было меньше, чем теперь при капитализме, потому что большинство принадлежало к совсем нуждающимся, и только ничтожное меньшинство, как тогда, так и теперь, принадлежало к кулакам, к эксплуататорам, к богатым крестьянам. Средних крестьян становится больше после того, как отменена частная собственность на землю. И вот со средним крестьянином советская власть твердо решила во что бы то ни стало установить отношения полного мира и согласия. Понятно, что средний крестьянин не может сразу встать на сторону социализма, потому что он твердо стоит на том, к чему привык, осторожно относится ко всяким новшествам, проверяет сначала делом, практикой то, к чему его зовут, не решается изменить свое.
In the short term, this change in government affected many things. The Russians took a large part in the Second World War, destroying the Nazi forces in literally cold blood. Joseph Stalin, who took over the nation after Vladimir Lenin, killed millions of people under his rule, mostly just because they disagreed with him. In the long term, the Soviets affected the Americans deeply. The Russians supported the Viet Cong in the Vietnam War, which the US lost. In the next few decades, there was a Cold War between Russia and the US. There was no actual physical conflict, but there was reconnaissance, information collection, and a nuclear and space race to raise tensions between the two countries. The Soviet Union disbanded on December 25, 1992. In general, the Russian Empire had a great impact on the First World War and modern history as we know it. They completely changed the course of history for the better or the worse. They were triumphant in aiding the Allies to win the First World War, but because of their hard work, they were destroyed from the inside out because of civil war. They helped to defeat Hitler and his super nation of his own, partially saving Europe as we know it. However, the US and Russia faced great disagreement over who was superior, and they both tried to come out on top in one way or another.